going to make it too easy.
Okay, we're going to talk about regulation of generators. And not in the fact that you have to have a license or register your generator with the FBI or something. That's not what I mean by regulation of generators, because everybody can own one.
California.
Yeah.
It's got to have a
Regulation of generators. Regulation. All right, we have to regulate them. We can't just bolt it on, hook up 2 wires, and go. Why do I say 2 wires? There's only 2 posts coming out of the back. One says A and one says F.
Armature field.
Armature, and then so the armature goes to the battery, basically, or the bus, because that's the output of the generator. And the F, well, if it's an A type, I guess you just ground it, and if it's a B type, you just go to the A post. No, don't do that. All right. So regulation of generators, the voltage output of a generator is dependent on 3 things. And these are the same 3 things that we actually saw in a magneto, but you probably just didn't notice. So what would those 3 things be? Speed, the armature rotates. So if we spin it faster, we are going to get... Why do we get more output?
Cutting the flux faster.
Cutting through the magnetic lines faster. So the speed of which we do that is going to create more electricities. Number of armature windings in the rotor. Not much you can do about that, but buy a new one, different one. And the strength. Yes. Strength of the magnetic field and we could call it a stator, although it's not really used much when we talk about generators, more when we talk about alternators, but the rotor rotates and the stator stays. It's not a hard one to remember. Which one spins? Not the one that stays. Okay. So which one of these do you think we're going to control or adjust if we get too much voltage?
The strength of the magnetic field?
Yes, we are not going to decrease the speed of the engine, are we?
No.
And we're not going to just try somehow change the armature windings. Hang on, I got to get out and change the armature windings. So we are going to be looking at the strength of the magnetic field. There are 3 different elements to control. 4 if you have a twin. There are 3 different elements to control. And 4 if it is a twin, or I should say multi-engine, because it could be like more than 2. Four elements if it is a multi-engine aircraft. All right, so what are those elements? Any ideas?
To control the magnetic field?
Well, what are the things we're going to control? What are the elements that we have to control?
The speed of armature.
Nope. Guess who controls the speed of the armature?
The engine.
The idiot, the loose nut behind the yoke. The engine does. So voltage, we have to control voltage. if we have a 12 volt system, or 14 if you want to call it that, can we have a generator putting out 30 volts?
Only for a little bit.
Not for long, we can't. So voltage, what it needs to be constant. Or very close to constant. It's okay if it moves around a little bit. 13, 8, 14, 2, that would be fine, but it can't be 10 and then 30. So voltage, what else? Current.
Oh, is the next one resistance?
Does the current need to be constant?
No.
No.
No, of course not. But it must be limited. Must be limited to max generator output. The generator's rated at 25 amps. Well, then you have to limit it to that. You can't let it go any further than that. Reverse current. So we have a problem with the generator, and that it's really a little motor. So we get motors. In fact, I could put a generator and a motor down, and you could switch them around, but I'd have trouble figure out which one's the generator and which one's the motor, because they look exactly the same. They both, I mean, this could very well just be an armature out of a motor that I just pulled in here. I honestly wouldn't know the difference. So what happens is is it really funny? Well, it looked like it was funny. He's laughing over there. So now that I'm distracted, it's a little motor. So if the generator has lower voltage output than the battery, so let's just say that we're sitting there, we're idling our engine, and we're below the coming in speed, and so we've got residual magnetism. You gonna be okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was just thinking about something else.
Cool.
I'm still paying attention. Now you're more distracted.
I know.
High-low motor.
So we have residual magnetism. So given that it has residual magnetism, what would the output of the generator be on residual magnetism?
2 volts.
Okay, so it'd be about 2 volts. So, but the battery has got 13 some volts in it. So the battery obviously has more voltage. So the voltage and current are going to go to the generator and drive the generator like a little motor. Which is kind of cool if you're looking for a little electric boost out of your engine. You know, you might get another
Hybrid.
0.0001 of a, I don't know, horsepower out of the thing. So you have to be able to shut off the generator if the generator is not putting out more than the battery. So reverse current.
Check valve.
Yes, a variable one. The generator voltage is less than battery voltage, the battery will motor the generator. What it's really going to do is, you know, I kind of make it kind of a joke. They're like, oh, it's going to motor. It really is just going to drain the battery very quickly, because it's not really going to motor it. I mean, it will, but it's connected, so it's not going to motor it. So it's going to drain the battery very rapidly. So I'd write that, motor the gen / drain battery.
Would you, if you had a bad reverse current relay and it did that, would you hear like a belt squeal?
I don't think so.
Well, because then it'd be driving. It's not. You have a belt squeal.
There's not enough power on it. Like when I did that with you, I could have grabbed the end and held onto it. Sometimes I have to even get them spinning on their own. All right, and the last thing, we have to equalize. Anytime you have a multi-engine aircraft, each engine is going to have a generator on it. And if one generator is even a little tiny bit higher than the other generator, then we run into the same problem. The one that is the highest voltage, say, one is at 13.6 and one's at 13.8, you're like, close enough. Nope. 13.8 is going to overpower that one, and it's going to supply the load to everything and trip the reverse current cutout on the other one. So it won't work. So everything is going to always drive off once. You have to, it's called paralleling the generators. So let me see, if one generator has a higher output that gen will take 100% of the load. So you have to parallel the generators, and then you'll have an equalizing circuit to boot.
So when you are working on a multi-engine, then you need to have a generator that can handle the load of the entire aircraft if it was just one?
Yeah, which is not a big deal. You take our 310 out there, or the Skymasters. It's the load in those aircraft. It's no different than load in my aircraft, single engine. The only extra load that they would have is landing gear going down, but that's momentary anyway. So
then why is there 2 generators? Why don't they just bring it with 1?
Redundancy, in case one fails. That's the whole point of having 2, in case something fails.
Okay.
So it'd be, you turn one engine, you have a problem, so you shut it down, but that's the one with the generator. Now you're like, crap, I've got 1 engine left. I have a limited amount of battery left. I'm an IFR. You got big problems. You want to be able to shut down the bad engine, say, okay, the other engine's fine. It's got a generator. I got the battery going. I got radios. Everything is good. We don't need 2 problems. All right, so let's talk about the voltage regulation. Which we really did for the most part. And we'll just take a look at it again. So the job of the voltage regulator is to keep the generator voltage output at a set voltage. So I'll put its job is to keep generator output voltage at a set voltage. How was it accomplished? I was thinking in broader terms. Controlling. What are we controlling?
Field winding.
The field strength. We're just going to do it by controlling the field strength. Now, how do we control the field strength? Well, I'm not going to write this one. One simple way of doing it, and we talked about the other day, is we could just use a small child. So my wife said, quit saying monkeys. There we go. All right. This is how we could do it. Is this an A-type or B-type generator? Hang on. Maniac. A-type or B-type?
B-type.
B-type.
Why is it a B-type?
Because it's connected to the positive.
Because F positive, it needs a positive. Well, let's see, because the F is internally grounded. You have to, let me help you out a little bit. You have to consider the fact that this is the generator.
Alright.
That's the case. So the only thing sticking out are the 2 posts, the A plus and the F and the A plus and the F plus. Right? Everything. This is all internal here.
Man, you were drawing
Load
such
is
good
going
circles
to the
before.
case. It's
Oops.
grounded to the case.
Well, I was trying to put the right stuff in and take the right stuff, wrong stuff out. So maybe it's a square one.
Just draw it around the armature of the field winding.
Well, I got to get that right there. So there we go. It's a square generator, but everything in there is inside the generator. Everything on the outside. Everything else is the outside. Got it? And this right here, where it says A minus load, yeah, really, that's just the generator right here going to ground. We don't go to load. All right. So we said it's an F plus. It's a B type because a B type needs a positive to make it work, and that's what it's getting right there, positive. And we take a look at it. I've got my laser pointer. There's the positive, comes in, goes through the field. It gets its ground down here. And this is really something you should be like, oh yeah, I got it. So this is the positive brush. That's a negative brush. All right. So what we could do is we could just, hire the small child. And when the voltage starts to go down and we don't have enough voltage, we'd have this would be in the cockpit somewhere, and they would just rotate it towards less resistance. And then that would allow more current to flow through the field. More current through the field makes a stronger magnet. Armature going through a stronger magnet would create more output. More output would then give us more voltage. And then we start shedding some loads, so the child has to increase resistance, so decrease field strength. Follow?
You're awful kind to keep them in the cockpit.
That is true.
You can fit him in the tail.
Sitting out in front of the firewall.
Keeps them warm, right?
I mean, you were saying heavier tail on the 182 gets you better airspeed.
So what's wrong with this system? Why can't we do that?
It requires constant manual input.
Constant manual input, and for those of you who don't have children, they're not that reliable. I mean, look around you. All right, so that wouldn't work out too well. Let me see what I have here. Yeah, overly simplified version. So this is, now I want to make this clear because every now and then, I get somebody over here is thinking of something else and just kind of sticks their head up and goes, oh, it's just a rheostat, and then goes back to their phone over here. So this is not how this works. It is a representation of how it could work in an overly simplified fashion.
It's a gross oversimplification.
Yes. Well, it's not gross. It's fine. All right. So an overly simplified version would to allow the pilot to continuously monitor the output and adjust the rheostat. There we go. Let me see. There are basically three types of voltage regulators.
Child type, functioning type, and non-functioning type.
Yes, ones that work really well, ones that work kind of well, ones that don't work. Basically three types. One would be the carbon pile.
Whoa.
Similar to what my dog left this morning in my neighbor's yard. I believe this is a carbon pile voltage regulator. I mean, it looks like one to me. And so that would be more of the original, I can't really tell, the original style of regulator. And what they did is they took carbon discs and stacked them into something. And the harder you press on these discs together, the lower the resistance. And the further apart you would make them, the more the resistance. So carbon discs stacked to create a variable resistor. And I think I've got, let's see. There we go. Carbon pile voltage regulator circuit. So, like I said, as the pressure increases, then the resistance goes down. I'm not going to ask you to memorize this, but you can just kind of take a look of how it would work.
How would the pressure increase?
Okay, right here is a coil. So here's a coil.
Oh, yeah.
and
we
that
push it
coil is going to energize, and it's an electromagnetic coil acting upon this right here.
up.
So I think I did have like all the notes on here at one point. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I did. Let me see. Oh yeah, there's a spring. So spring that places pressure on the pile. Springs, that makes it high or low resistance. Low resistance, okay. In series with the field. Let me see if we have that in series with the field. In series with the field, that would be right. I guess that goes through there. Like that. A, B. A coil in parallel with the generator output will counter the spring pressure as max generator output is reached, reducing output. Small rheostats provided for limited ground adjustment. So this is our ground adjustment. Oh, see, this is off a twin. That's because it goes to an equalizer bus. That's for a twin. Got your carbon stack. Anyway, I don't want to get into how all this works. I used to, but it's like,
Does it have to be calibrated, or?
yeah. So if your voltage was 13, you're like, hey, I need to bump that up. That's what the rheostat's for. So it's not pilot adjustable. It's mechanic adjustable. So we go and adjust that. But the takeaway that I need you to have is that you can see that it's got a sensing loop. These are carbon stacks. Comes off the armature. It's going to go down to here. Oops, go through there. Wind through there and go to ground. So the higher the output is going to be, the stronger this would be. Yeah, as the voltage increases, right here, that would increase the field. That would pull on this, decreasing the resistance of the stack. Decreasing.
I thought it was increasing.
If you're
Pulling
compressing.
Decreasing the pressure.
Okay.
Increasing the resistance.
Okay.
So then the resistance would increase, which means that we would get less current going down here through the stack into our electromagnet or field coil. Then as the voltage started to decrease,
Let's see.
Changes the
Push back
rheostat.
down.
we need to push the stack back together. So what happens is this decreases the magnetic pull. The spring pressure will push them back together, which causes the resistance to go down. Low resistance means more current flows through here into the field coils, bringing the voltage back up.
So the spring unpowered is compressed, and then the power pulls it.
Like
Yes.
a magnet,
The,
basically.
the way I just explained it, yes.
Is that the main way, or is it the other way around?
I believe that's the. I'm sure for every way you can explain something, there's somebody will figure out a way to do it a little bit different. Oh, well, that's the Chrysler version. Hey, you should see the Ford. It runs just the opposite. So, all right, things that I didn't see. Carbon disc stacked to create a variable resistor. As pressure on the stack increases, resistance is lowered. So pressure on stack. Pressure on stack decreases. Resistance. Let's see. Yeah, so the opposite's true. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on that. Sorry, I just don't have it to give. So carbon pile. There you go. I explained it. Okay, then we have the vibrator type. Which is where I really need to spend our time putting this together. So we have the vibrator type. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a 3-element voltage regulator. Right now we're just going to look at a single element. Then we're going to add this to the 3, but this is a great place to start. This is an actual representation of what you're going to see, what an actual voltage regulator looks like. So we can kind of take a look at what we have going on here. We have F+, so this is a B type.
Yes.
You're going to be working with A types. You just have to remember that. Things are backwards. just as a matter of what's positive and what's negative, but that's okay. So here we got the output, A plus going to the battery or the load, A minus, which really just goes to ground. I put the little ground symbol there apparently to remind myself that's the ground side. So the field needs a positive, right? So far we're good? Yes. All right, so let's see, where do we get a field positive somewhere? So I'm just going to follow this around through here. That does not touch. We have a resistance right there. Goes up to here. So I have a path here, follow, through a resistor. Or I can come down here, path through points if they're closed directly over here. Follow so far? Okay, is this big enough? I think I can make it bigger maybe. Let me see. Okay, let's get out a pen here. All right, so what happens when the generator is just sitting there? These points should be normally closed. All right.
On the
Voltage regulator. Oh. Okay, so we start up the generator, and we have current's going to come out. It's going to go down and just go through this winding and down. That winding right there creates an electromagnetic field that attracts these points. So we'll say these contact points are normally closed, which means when they're resting, when all is well with the world and they're just the engine's off, everything's fine, they're closed. So what happens is we start up the generator and we have residual magnetism. And that residual magnetism is going to give us about how many volts? 2. And let's say this is set for 14 volts. Is 2 enough?
No.
So this coil is pretty much the brains of the operation, and it's going to want more voltage. So what's going to happen is the current's going to come through here, down through here. That coil is not strong enough to do anything, so the voltage is going to come through here, or the current through there, around, and the field is going to get as much as possible, right? Can you see the direct path? No, I never saw a resistor, right? No resistance. So we're going to have maximum field. And so we start bringing the generator up. We go faster and faster and faster with the generator, which we do with the engine. We bring the engine faster. And eventually, because of the speed of the armature rotating in that small little piece of magnetic field, that's all we have is a little bit of residual magnetism. With that residual magnetism, we're going to create more and more current coming through this way until this field here gets strong enough to give us
More output.
an output of 14 volts. All right, so let's just say that's what we wanted. So at 14 volts, this right here is going to be strong enough to open the points. When it opens the points, now can't get through. So the current has to come down here through this big resistor and drops it down below 14 volts. Well, that's not enough. So what does this do?
Overpower the spring.
Well, now the spring, that's the spring right there, pulling them closed. It's not going to overpower, so the spring is going to pull them back closed. And now we have absolutely no resistance going to the field coil, so the field coil is going to get stronger. Voltage is going to start to go up, and it's going to go past 14. So what's going to happen? So now it's going to open it back up again. Now it goes through the resistor, and it's going to sit there and vibrate like that, on and off. It's like if I wanted to dim the lights by, that's how my kids would do it. Are you going to light dimmer switch? I'll just flick them real fast for you, Dad.
How dim do you want it?
Yeah. So that's how it works. It just vibrates very, very rapidly, so rapid that you cannot see it. So we're gonna do this on the. Hopefully, you get a chance.
It's crazy. It's true. You can't see it.
Yeah, and you're using an LED light with DC batteries, so it wasn't the light bulbs not flashing in my. I guess it would be, but because I think LEDs do flash a little. But anyway, yeah, you can't see it. I've never been able to see that happen.
Out of curiosity, with the contact points, I know with magnetos, they have the issue that the capacitors there in order to prevent this from happening. would there be an issue with arcing across those contact points?
You're not talking a lot of voltage.
Okay.
It's only the amount of voltage going over here. So first of all, it's going to be 12, 14 volts, not 200.
Okay.
So there's that.
There's always flow through the resistor,
That too.
just not a lot of it whenever.
Well, we know based on electrical laws that there would always be something. Maybe it's like 0.0001 of an amp, but or even less. The resistors they're pretty hefty. Yeah, they're rather large.
That would help stop arcing too, probably.
There's no arcing happening.
That's right. And so, well, let's say the pilot says, "Hey, I got a problem. I'm only getting like 12.5 volts. I want a little more." Well, you just adjust the spring. That's all that's for. So it's mechanic adjustable inside of a little cover that's bolted onto the firewall. So all right, that's how a voltage regulator, a vibrating type voltage regulator works. Do you follow? I hope you do, because there's going to be more and more of this. If that was like, well, I don't really get it, but I'm sure it'll come to me in my sleep. It probably won't. Maybe it will. All right, so vibrator type.
Pick it up.
Vibrator type. So a resistor is intermittently cut in and out of the field circuit by a normally closed breaker points in series with the field current. A resistor is intermittently cut in and out. Cut in and out of the field circuit by normally closed breaker points. And just to be clear, the fact that they're called normally closed doesn't mean like, well, they normally open. What are they? Normally I think they'd be closed. It means that in their resting position with nothing influencing them, they will be closed. And the reason why is because they're sitting there trying to give you 14 volts. So if the generator shuts off, what's their job? Hey, we got to increase field current. So they're going to close. Well, not going to get anywhere because everything else is off, but they'll just sit there closed. And I'm going to close breaker points in series with field current. In series with field. There we go, field. So points and resistor are in parallel with each other. Are parallel. With each other, but in series with points.
With
With
field,
points?
you mean?
Yeah, field. That's exactly what I meant. Well, there's more points. Let me see. This is maybe a bit wordy here. Voltage coil is connected in parallel with the generator output. As voltage increases, yeah, let's do it. A voltage coil is connected in parallel with generator output.
Connected in parallel with the generator output?
Yes. There we go. So as voltage increases to to desired value, as voltage increases to desired value, the coil opens the points. Coil opens the points, and current to field must go through resistor. This drops field current and lowers magnetic strength. Well, as the field strength decreases, so does.
The coil strength.
Well, as the field current lowers and field strength, this drops field current and lowers the field strength. When the field strength drops, what happens to generator output?
Decreases.
Okay, this drops generator output. Generator output voltage. Let me see. This drops, I says, magnetic field drops, so does output, and the coil releases the points, which removes the resistor. This drops generator output voltage. Let me see. Which releases points. Oh yeah, bypassing resistor. And then the cycle just keeps repeating. So the points open and close. Many times per second.
How many?
Manual said like 50 to 200 times a second.
Is that what it is? It's fast.
How many hertz is that?
What?
How many hertz is that?
Okay, our last type here, let me see. We got A, B, C, D will be the solid state.
Pretty nice.
Solid state. Then there's a solid state one, which is what, I don't know if generators, I'm guessing they have a solid state version. I don't know why they wouldn't. Contains no moving parts.
The regulator?
Yep.
Like a
Solid state regulator has no moving parts whatsoever, no moving parts, and consists of transistors, diodes, and resistors. Consists of resistors, diodes, and transistors. Definitely the newer style. All right, I'm going to change over to here. Okay, this is just a 3-unit regulator. And you can tell by the boxes that it's just 3 different things. So all we have to do is look at each one individually, and they should make perfect sense. And they just all work kind of
That's way better wiring diagram than what you get in the book.
in harmony. I told you your book sucks.
Yeah, it's.
All right, so
why
let's
did
just
you
get familiar with what we're looking at. We've got the armature, the brushes, and the field.
Yes.
Same thing we looked at before. So we looked at a voltage regulator, a vibrator type voltage regulator. This is the same thing. Look at it. So it comes out of here, and then it goes to the load, which is going to be later, we'll get to that. Then it breaks off of there. So in parallel with that, we have a voltage coil acting on
Points.
the points that are in parallel with the resistor. So let's see here. So we need power to the field. Well, unfortunately, that's going to go through something else, but we can kind of fake it for now. So points are normally open or closed? Closed. Okay, so you have power comes through here, but it's not enough to act on anything, and that just kind of goes off to ground. So you see that? Path to ground. There's my voltage coil, path to ground. And let's see, we need to get some power over to my field, so we'll just come down through here, go through the normally closed points, which come around here, and there's another spring right there, and we're going to go, resistor, and there we go. We found a pretty easy spot. Or we can come down through here, go through the points, and I found a way to get to the field without seeing a single resistor. That was not hard, right?
Yeah.
All right, so the voltage regulator is going to work exactly like we talked about earlier. So as the voltage here increases and exceeds a set value or a value, it will open the points, sending the field through a resistor. And then it's going to get to here and then has a choice. It can either go no resistor or another resistor. We'll get to that. It's not a big deal. So everything's the same. All right, we've already learned about this. But let's take a look at the current limiter. We have time? Yeah, a few minutes. The current limiter is designed to keep the generator from exceeding its rated output. So, like I said, if we have a 25 amp generator, this thing's got to start, when it hits 25 amps, it's got to limit it. So think about the Simpson meter. If you wanted to deal with voltage, you had to do it in parallel. But if you want to measure amps, you had to do it in series. Doing the same thing. So this measures voltage. Now we have to measure amps, which is going to do it in series. So the entire generator output really does go through this coil. So if it's a 25 amp generator, you got 25 amps going through there. If it's a 50 amp, you got 50 amps. All right, so that's just going to go through here. And what happens is this is going to be normally closed.
Open it.
Yes, open. I was thinking that's why I paused. Open. So, hang on here.
Nice. It will.
It will open. Now, let me think. They have to be.
You should take a picture.
This one, okay, this one is normally open for sure. This one is normally closed. Normally closed. Let me see. Yes, I was correct. Normally closed. So normally closed, normally open. And the reason why this one is closed is because it's sitting there saying, give me more voltage, give me more voltage.
Give me more.
This one right here is closed because it's saying,
Give me more.
I'm fine with the current. I have no problem with this. Yeah, I'll let you know when I do. When the current exceeds a set limit, notice that it just runs off to something else. It will open this, and if this is vibrating, maybe at 1 minute or second, half a second, it's going through here. The next one, it was going through here, but now this opened up. So, whoa, too much current, too much current. The field winding goes through a resistor and back up.
So it would lower the voltage.
So it lowered the voltage over here to the armature. So if it lowered, the field. So if it lowered the field coil voltage, what happens to output?
Lowers the output.
Starts to drop. So this one is always vibrating for the most part. This one right here is almost always closed. It's only going to start open or vibrating when you start exceeding the generator current. And when you do that, it's going to start vibrating. Instead of sending what happened right here through the closed points, it's going to send it through here, through a resistor, dropping down the current over here, which drops the armature.
So
Output,
that half
no.
power, that's gonna stay closed for the.
What's that?
For if it's running at half rated power. It's gonna
Half
stay
rated power, this is absolutely closed all the time. Just this one over here is
vibrating.
vibrating almost always. Now it could get confusing when you start to get to the max output. Then you could have some weird stuff, but we can talk about that tomorrow because I can see you're ready to go, and you know I'm having fun, and you want to go.